March 17th, 1973. 2:47 a.m. A phone rings in Frank Lucas's Teaneck estate, and nobody picks up. Across the George Washington Bridge, in a diner off Pleasant Avenue, 3 men finish their coffee. One of them leaves cash on the table. No tip. They walk out separately 30 seconds apart, and by 3:15 a.m. all 3 cars are gone from the lot. The waitress clears the cups. She'll forget their faces by morning. That's the point. At the same moment, in a warehouse in the Bronx, 2 of Lucas's distributors wait for a delivery that will never arrive. They've been waiting since midnight. One checks his watch. The other stares at the door. Neither one says what they're both thinking. This has never happened before. That night, Frank Lucas doesn't know it yet, but the rules just changed. What no one realized at the time was that the war had already started. There were no gunshots, no bodies, no headlines. Just silence where there used to be noise, and absence where there used to be reliable men. Frank Lucas had built something unprecedented in New York's underworld. By early 1973, his heroin operation moved more product than most established families. He didn't ask permission, didn't share territory, didn't bow. His supply line ran straight from Southeast Asia to the streets of Harlem, bypassing every traditional middleman, every controlled port, every negotiated boundary that Italian-American organized crime had spent decades establishing. He called his product Blue Magic, pure, reliable, cheaper than anything the old families could offer. That purity was a problem. In late February, a meeting took place in a social club on Mulberry Street. No transcripts exist, no recordings. But 3 days later, patterns began to shift. Small things at first. A truck that usually made deliveries on Tuesdays starts showing up on Thursdays. A lawyer who handled certain transactions suddenly has a full caseload. A dock supervisor who used to look the other way starts checking manifests twice. Frank Lucas notices, but not enough to worry. His operation is family tight. His brothers run the street crews. His wife doesn't ask questions. His supply line is direct. No one to betray him because no one else knows the full route. He's built his empire on independence, and independence has made him untouchable. Or so it seems. By mid-March, one of Lucas's mid-level dealers, a man named Vincent Ramirez, gets approached in a pool hall in the Bronx. 2 men he doesn't know sit down at his table. They don't introduce themselves. One of them slides a matchbook across the felt. "You work alone now," the man says. "Smart." Ramirez picks up the matchbook. Inside, there's a phone number written in pencil. "What's this for?" Ramirez asks. "For when you need friends," the second man says. They stand up, leave. Ramirez stares at the matchbook for a full minute, then pockets it. He doesn't call the number. Not yet. But he keeps it. That's how it starts. Not with threats. With options. A week later, another one of Lucas's suppliers, a transportation coordinator named Eddie Carbone, finds his usual parking spot at the docks occupied. Every day for a month, someone else's truck is there first. Small thing. Annoying. But it adds time to every pickup. 5 minutes becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. His routes start running late. Customers get impatient. Carbone complains to his supervisor, who shrugs. "Docks are crowded," the supervisor says. "What do you want me to do?" Carbone knows better than to push. But the delay costs him. And delays cost Lucas. In early April, Frank Lucas sits in his living room with his brother Huey. They're going over numbers. Revenue is steady, but margins are tightening. Huey points at a column of figures. "We're paying more for transport," Huey says. "Same routes, same drivers, but the fees went up." "How much?" Lucas asks. 15%, across the board." Lucas leans back. 15% is deliberate. Not enough to cripple, just enough to notice. "Who raised them?" "Nobody said. Just came down as new rates." Lucas doesn't react. Not outwardly. But something shifts in his expression. He's been in the game long enough to know when pressure isn't random. "Pay it," Lucas says. "For now." Huey nods. They move to the next column. What Frank Lucas doesn't see, because it's designed to stay invisible, is the broader picture. Across the city, the people who make illegal business function smoothly are receiving quiet instructions, not orders, suggestions. A phone call here, a message there. Nothing explicit, nothing traceable. A laundry service that used to clean Lucas's money starts asking more questions about documentation. A customs officer who used to wave shipments through starts requiring secondary inspections. A nightclub owner who let Lucas's people meet in the back room suddenly has new policies about reservations. None of it is dramatic. All of it is coordinated. By late April, one of Lucas's couriers, a driver named Marcus Webb, gets pulled over on the New Jersey Turnpike. Routine traffic stop. The state trooper checks his license, looks in the back seat, asks where he's headed. Webb plays it cool. He's made this drive 200 times. He knows the script. The trooper hands back his license. Drive safe. Webb pulls away. But 3 miles down the road he sees another trooper parked on the shoulder, watching. Not stopping anyone. Just watching. Webb makes the delivery. But the next week, same route, another stop. Different trooper. Same questions. Same careful inspection of the cargo hold that holds nothing illegal because Webb is too smart to carry product on his person. After the third stop in 2 weeks, Webb tells Lucas's logistics manager he wants a different route. This one's hot, Webb says. The manager switches him to a Brooklyn run, but 2 weeks later, Webb gets stopped again. Different borough, different excuse. Webb quits 3 days after that. Finds work driving for a grocery distributor. Lucas replaces him. The new driver gets stopped within a week. That's when Lucas starts to understand. The pressure isn't random, it's surgical. In May, Frank Lucas meets with a lawyer named Samuel Broughton. Broughton has handled Lucas's real estate transactions for 2 years. Clean deals, legitimate properties, nothing that would attract attention. But today, Broughton looks uncomfortable. I need to refer you to someone else, Broughton says. Lucas doesn't blink. Why? Conflict of interest. I've taken on new clients. I can't represent both. Who are the new clients? Broughton doesn't answer directly. He slides a business card across the desk. Another lawyer. Good reputation. No obvious red flags. He'll take care of you, Broughton says. Lucas pockets the card. Shakes Broughton's hand. Leaves the office. He doesn't argue. Doesn't push. But he adds Broughton's name to a mental list that's been growing longer every week. The new lawyer is competent, professional, but every transaction now takes twice as long. More paperwork, more verification, more delays. Nothing illegal. Nothing Lucas can challenge. Just friction where there used to be ease. By June, the pressure is no longer subtle. One of Lucas's main distributors in Brooklyn, a man named Tommy Angelino, stops returning calls. Lucas sends someone to check on him. The messenger comes back with a simple report. Tommy's still in business, still moving product. Just not Lucas's product anymore. Lucas asks who Tommy's working for now. Didn't say. But word is he got a better deal. Lucas knows what that means. Someone offered Tommy protection Lucas can't provide. Territory Lucas can't guarantee. A future Lucas can no longer promise. 3 days later, another distributor goes quiet. Then another. Frank Lucas calls a meeting with his brothers. They gather in the basement of a house in Mount Vernon. No phones, no outsiders, just family. We're being squeezed, Lucas says. He doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't need to. Someone's turning our people. His brother Turner speaks up. You think it's the Italians? I know it is. So what do we do? Lucas considers this. He could fight, could push back, could remind people what happens when you cross him, but that's the trap. Violence draws attention. Attention draws police. And police are exactly what someone wants right now. We tighten up, Lucas says. Family only. No new partners. No outside crews. We run lean until this passes. It's the right decision tactically, but strategically, it's the beginning of the end. By isolating himself, Lucas is doing exactly what his enemies want. He just doesn't realize it yet. Throughout the summer of 1973, Frank Lucas's operation remains functional. Product still moves, money still flows. But the network is shrinking. The buffer that used to exist between Lucas and law enforcement, the layers of intermediaries, the bought protection, the negotiated boundaries, is thinning. And law enforcement is noticing. Detective Richie Roberts has been tracking narcotics patterns in Essex County for 3 years. He's ambitious, clean, refuses bribes in a department where refusing bribes makes you a target. In late July, Roberts gets a call from a federal agent he's worked with before. "You still interested in the big suppliers?" the agent asks. "Always." "Frank Lucas. Heard of him?" Roberts has. Lucas's name has come up before, but always peripherally, never as a primary target. "What about him?" "Things are shifting. People are talking. Might be worth a look." The agent doesn't say who's talking or why, but Roberts knows what that means. When the Underworld wants someone gone, they don't send soldiers. They send whispers. Roberts opens a file, writes Lucas's name at the top, starts pulling reports. By August, surveillance on Lucas's known locations has tripled. Nothing official. No warrants. Just more eyes, more questions, more attention. A delivery truck that used to pass through certain neighborhoods unnoticed now gets followed for 6 blocks. A meeting in a restaurant in Queens gets photographed from across the street. A bank transaction that would have been routine suddenly triggers a flag for review. Frank Lucas feels it. His instincts are too sharp not to, but he misreads the source. He thinks the heat is random, cyclical. The kind of pressure that comes and goes with political cycles and budget allocations. He doesn't understand that someone turned the dial, and they're not turning it back. In September, one of Lucas's street lieutenants, a man named Clarence Horn, gets arrested with 2 kilos. Routine bust. Happens a dozen times a week in New York. But the interrogation isn't routine. The detective interviewing Horn already knows things. Names, locations, routes. He's not fishing. He's confirming. Horn lawyers up. Doesn't talk. But the precision of the questions stays with him. Someone talked. Or someone's watching closer than Horn realized. When he makes bail, Horn goes to Lucas. "They know too much," Horn says. "They always think they know too much," Lucas replies. "You give them nothing. We move on." But Lucas starts changing patterns anyway. Different routes. Different times. Different people. Every adjustment makes the operation less efficient, more expensive, more visible. That's the paradox. The harder Lucas works to stay invisible, the more obvious he becomes. By October, even the small victories feel temporary. A shipment gets through customs without inspection. Relief that lasts until Lucas realizes the next 3 shipments will probably be stopped to compensate. A new distributor signs on, but asks for guarantees Lucas used to never have to provide. One night in late October, Lucas sits alone in his car outside his home. The lights are on inside. His wife is cooking dinner. His kids are watching television. It's a scene of normalcy, of success, of everything he built. But Lucas doesn't go inside immediately. He sits there, engine off, watching his own house like a stranger. He's thinking about the phone calls that don't get returned. The meetings that get rescheduled and never rescheduled again. The people who used to need him who suddenly have other options. He's thinking about power, and how it's not a thing you hold. It's a thing other people grant you. And when they stop granting it, there's no contract you can enforce, no territory you can defend, no threat that restores what's already gone. Frank Lucas gets out of the car, goes inside, kisses his wife, sits down to dinner, acts like everything is fine. Because from the outside, everything is fine. The money's still coming in. The operation's still running. There are no bodies, no arrests, no public defeats. But Lucas knows, even if he won't say it out loud, that something fundamental has shifted. He's no longer expanding. He's defending. And defending is the first stage of losing. What Frank Lucas doesn't know is that the war he's fighting isn't meant to destroy him. It's meant to isolate him, to remove every buffer, every ally, every escape route. So that when law enforcement finally moves, and they will move, there's no one left to intervene. The families that are squeezing him don't need him dead. They need him exposed, vulnerable, alone. They need the state to do what violence would only complicate. And it's working. By the end of 1973, Frank Lucas is still one of the most powerful heroin traffickers in New York. His operation hasn't collapsed. His reputation hasn't shattered. To anyone watching from a distance, he's still on top. But the people who know, the ones who matter, see something different. They see a man whose suppliers are drying up, whose protection is gone, whose network is closing in on itself. They see a target. In a social club in Little Italy, the same men who met in February meet again in December. No one says Frank Lucas's name. They don't need to. The question on the table isn't whether he'll fall. It's when. One of the men lights a cigarette. Give it a year, maybe 2. Another man nods. Law will handle it. That's the beauty of the quiet war. No fingerprints, no risk, no retaliation, just gravity, just time. Just the inevitable weight of a system that no one man can fight alone. Frank Lucas ends 1973 the way he started it. In control of his empire, surrounded by family, convinced that independence is strength. He's wrong, but he won't understand why until it's far too late. The war was never announced. No one fired a shot. No one claimed victory. But the outcome was already written. Lucas just hadn't read the last page yet. In 1975, the federal government will move against Frank Lucas with overwhelming force. He'll be arrested, tried, and convicted. His empire will collapse in weeks. And when he looks back, trying to understand how it all fell apart, he'll remember 1973 as the year the walls started closing in. But he won't remember a single dramatic moment. No betrayal, no violence, no clear turning point. Just a phone that didn't ring. A meeting that didn't happen. A deal that didn't close. That's how power ends sometimes. Not with thunder. With silence. If this story stayed with you, if it made you see how wars can be fought without a single bullet fired, hit subscribe. Hit like. Share this with someone who needs to understand that the most dangerous attacks are the ones you don't see coming. More stories that history didn't clean up are coming next. Stories about the moments when everything changed, and nobody even noticed until it was already done.